The Vanishing Half. This one is just a great book about two sisters who grew up in a Black community, ran away from home when they were 16, and then they were identical twins. One of them just lived a life, passed off as a white person. The other one is living with her Black daughter, and just how their lives are, you can't really, how their lives intertwine, but then their daughters moving into the future, what will theirs be? This whole, we have a really huge new collection, and Ann Wolf has most of those books now if you need some on social justice, and they are current. We probably have 25, 30 books that we were granted by a family. So anyway, one of the ones I just got back from Anne, I have not read, but is A Long Time Coming. And this too is kind of traces the roots of racism. But then I have to tell you, if some of you have young children around, years ago, my friend Sue here is also a licensed librarian. Books for children, picture books were called easy books. They're not easy books, they're everybody books. And this is one of my favorite, my very favorite. Maybe God is like that too. And it's about the fruits of a spirit, a grandmother with her grandson going around the neighborhood and looking for the fruits of the spirit. And I did this with my upper elementary grade grandchildren. And we went to TJ Maxx, we went to Cub, we were at school, and the kids learned to say, that person looks like kindness. That person looks like maybe it's sweeping the street. I just can't tell you how much I love that book. But then I wanted you to know too that the Trinity Library works with every ministry team at church. And so if we are knowing that something is going on, well, of course, we love to get books like 50 Ways to Pray. I'll get back to that. But we recently had books at the parent and the family faith formation gathering about the new bee garden that is bee lawn that will be at Trinity. And this is an everybody book. It is easy, like H is for, but it also has a column teaching about bees. And so I just want you to be aware that, you know, that we are there to support you. And children in faith too. One of our young members recommended this book. It's called Indescribable. It's 100 devotions about God and science. And I have gifted this to children. Here's one, Busy as a Bee. And but anyway, it gives an example of a wonder, an indescribable nature, and then where is God in that? How is God in me in that? So just really wonderful stories too. But Zanny, along with 50 Ways to Pray, which Teresa will really focus on today, so I won't say a lot about that, but we just are so fortunate to have this in our Trinity Library. She also, Zanny also recommended one, it's called Ash and Starlight. It is a book about prayers for the chaos and the grace in life. And I love these books. And this one, I just want to share something. In the Sanctuary of Women, it takes 6 women in the Bible, not in the just in the Bible, but like Eve. And it goes through some of her life situations and what she would be thinking about. Or Catherine of Bingen, we have a couple of books in her library, but it also has, you can see just pages of story about it, but also blessings. And I wanted to read 2 blessings to you from this book. And this is Celtic. Amid your labors along your road, may there be sisters to tend you and to welcome you in. Or may the love of the word that inhabited these women and that dwell also in you, drawing you into its mysteries and inspiring your actions for the life of the world. And that is in the Sanctuary of Women. So please let us know if you need anything in the library. It's just a difficult time right now to have you down there, but we have a young mom distributing books. We have Anne distributing books. I am taking books around. There's a new display upstairs if you go to a church. And we just are grateful for all of you and readers and learners at Trinity. So thank you for the time, Zanny. And hooray for Teresa.
Woohoo!
Pray.
That's right. Woohoo! All right, friends. Just a couple of detail-y things, housekeeping, before I introduce our speaker today. And first of all is Zoom etiquette. So if you're able to mute yourself when you're not speaking, that would be great. There's a lot of ambient noise in the world, dogs barking and cars going by, and it just helps all of us to be able to hear better if you're able to mute yourself when you're not speaking. And when you are speaking, Teresa is going to have some discussion questions for us. So please don't be shy about jumping in during those discussions. And if you are shy, you can use the chat box and type in a question, and then I will moderate that chat box for you. And before we begin, why don't you, I'm going to do an old school thing. I'm going to take a picture of our screen. So those of you with hats or, I don't have a pretty teacup, but teacups, hold it up, please. I'm going to take a picture of us. Everybody say cheese. Cheese. Or we should say tea. All right, fun. And Pastor Chris, would you like to do an opening prayer for us before I introduce Teresa?
I would love to. And Teresa, I have to apologize. I can't remain today, but I wanted to come on and greet you and welcome you. And I'm so grateful for Zanny for connecting us with your wisdom. And I know she and I will have a chance to talk about how today goes and for me to have a chance to peek at her copy of the book. So thanks for being with us. Let's pray. Loving God, what a glorious gift it is to rise to the morning to the company of your women, to be in this beloved and holy, safe and sacred space, to learn, to open our hearts and our minds and our lives to the possibility of your moving and acting and living and being in us in ways that are unique to the way we express your love in the world. Send your spirit to move through this gathering, that we can delight in our hats and be comforted by the tea and take chances in friendship and Christian love. We give thanks for Teresa and Zanny for their ministry and their leadership and for all that they will bring to shape and guide this discussion. And bless us into this weekend, whether it is a weekend of celebration or a weekend of grief as we face Mother's Day tomorrow. We know that ultimately you mother us in all the ways that we most intimately need, and we give you thanks. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Chris.
Love you all. Bye-bye.
Love you too.
Bye, Chris.
Isn't she good? I didn't even ask her to pray. She's so good. Okay. So yay for Teresa being here. Teresa Blythe is a pastor. She's an author. She has written, as we mentioned, 50 Ways to Pray, which is practices from many traditions and times, 50 spiritual practices. Such a good book to have in your library, friends. And then also Spiritual Direction 101. Teresa wrote this, and it's the nuts and bolts of what spiritual direction is. And it's an invaluable copy for those of us who are in the field of spiritual direction. And of course, Teresa was my teacher when I got my spiritual direction certification training in it was 4 years ago, so 2016. Teresa was my teacher, and I just loved her, continue to love her. The wisdom, the warmth, the humility, Teresa is just, well, you'll see. We're going to be delighted by what she has to share with us this next hour. So with that, you are up, my friend.
Okay. Well, it's really great to be with you. And thanks, Zanny. I feel like, I'm at the Academy Awards or something. And I got to tell you, I enjoyed Zanny being in the Hezekiah School as much as she enjoyed being there with me. So, and I'm really thrilled, Zanny, at how you have turned your spiritual direction, skills, and sensibilities into like a career. So that's really heartening to see.
Thank you.
So I'm talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that is the variety of ways that we connect with God, many ways to pray. And I'll talk a bit about how you can find your fit if you maybe haven't found a prayer practice that you like to do on a regular basis, or maybe we'll try a few of these. So welcome to the adventure. I'm going to share my screen now. And I just use PowerPoint just to kind of keep myself organized. So, but if you would like a PDF of this PowerPoint, I can get that for you. I want to see some people. Let's see. I'm fiddling with my screen. That's why what you're seeing. Okay. Finding your fit. She mentioned 50 ways to pray. That's kind of, I'm pulling from that book for this presentation mostly. And it's just what the title says. It's 50 different ways. And in the back of it, there's a leader's guide. So if you're invited to lead a group in some kind of prayer experience or prayer practice, then you can consult the back of that book on kind of how to do it. Everything I write is pretty much a how-to book. You know, it's like step 1, step 2, step 3. That's just kind of what I do. And I'm so heartened that people find this book helpful. There's many more than 50 ways to pray. There's every day I find a new kind of prayer. I think, maybe I could write a follow-up to 50 ways. Well, let's start by talking about what is prayer. And these are some of my definitions. Well, prayer is communication with the source of life that is both within us and beyond us. So source of life is one name I have for God. You can talk about God, you can talk about Jesus, any member of the Trinity, Holy Spirit, and God, of course, goes by so many names. So whatever is comfortable for you, prayer is communicating with the person of God. And 83% of Americans told pollster George Barna that they pray, and not just in church, but outside of church. So prayer is really a bridge. It's a bridge among all different flavors and kinds of Christians. We all do it. And it's also very common in most of the world religions, some form of connecting. So I think prayer is a bridge that can help people come together in unity. And it's important, I think, to emphasize that communication with God doesn't have to be with words. Some people are really good with words, like Pastor Chris, and others, we struggle sometimes. It doesn't have to be verbal. It doesn't have to be static, the same thing we've done all our life, unless we want to, or limited to forms of the past. So I grew up in a Southern Baptist home, and throughout my childhood and young adult life, I really only knew a few ways to pray. There was the Lord's Prayer, of course. There in their tradition, there's the sinner's prayer, and then there's petitions, asking God for something. And when I went then to seminary, I left Southern Baptist life, very young adult. And as I went to some other denominations, I found different ways to pray. But when I went to seminary and when I studied Christian spirituality and spiritual direction, that field of what is prayer just exploded. And that's where the book came from. I collected handouts from every teacher, every prayer practice, and kind of put them all together in the book. This communication with God is both requesting. I have no problem with asking God for whatever I feel like I need, even if it's a tacky desire. I feel like God knows it anyway, so I'll just speak it. But it's also listening for responses. So some of the things I've asked for, I did not get. I didn't get in the way I wanted. But as I really listen for a response, then I come to understand why I didn't get the thing I wanted, or just being with God. So we'll talk a lot about that listening aspect, because a lot of us are better at kind of petitions, but listening means becoming still, becoming quiet. Silence is important, but for some people, silence was, the way they were punished. So they're not too comfortable with silence. So I use the word quiet and stillness. And so we'll experience some of that. Anyone can pray, and there's so many different ways to communicate with the source of life, the Holy One, that could not be contained in any book. So I'd love to hear from some of you, what is prayer to you? And what you can do is if you're ready to talk, you can just unmute yourself and just go popcorn style.
Teresa, do you want to take down your PowerPoint so we can all see each other?
Oh, sure. I think if I pause it, did that go away?
No, it's still there. And,
Okay.
and if it, oh, there we go. Now it went away. So
what is prayer to you?
Good morning, it's Suzanne. And prayer for me is conversation with God. And it's conversation at any point in time during my day. It's when I'm in the car, it's when I'm walking the dog, it's when I see something beautiful. And I try to have that conversation when I feel the Spirit. And some days I feel the Spirit, and other days I don't. And on those quiet days, I go to the Our Father, and I say the Our Father and the Hail Mary. But for me, that's my thoughts about what prayer is.
Thanks, Suzanne. Yeah, there's that song. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. That's what your response reminded me of. And also, I can get a little technical about prayer, so I'll just offer this. But where you just kind of pray throughout your day, here and there, and when you see something, a need, you pray. That's a very Franciscan style of prayer. St. Francis taught about just, you're taking a walk, you see something of beauty, you pray. He called them arrow prayers, like shooting little arrows, because for him, God was up there. So it's a really traditional and time-honored way to pray. Anyone else?
I liked what Suzanne said quite a bit, because I can relate to that. But what I find happens sometimes is I respond in prayer to something that's unexpected when I'm out and about, an ambulance rushing by, somebody that looks forlorn, or something that looks very positive. I have an emotional reaction to that. And I either have empathy for what I feel is wrong, or gratitude for something that I experience is wonderful. And I think that is a relationship that is definitely connected to God for me.
That reminds me of Anne Lamott's little saying, the way to pray: help, thanks, and wow. Those are the three prayers for her. Oh, you got the book, Help, Thanks, and Wow. Yes, she's a great writer. I was even reading her before she converted and became all spiritual. She's a novelist. Prayer is breath, is life breathed in and out, from Nancy. Thank you.
I'll jump in. I like both Suzanne and Joan's description of prayer, and I definitely relate to that too. But I wanted to add something a little different. I would say when I was raising children, I did a lot of praying during that time. And because I have two special needs kids, and it was a very, very difficult time, the time that I was a young mom and then an older mom too. And I found that during that time of my life, prayer did not help me at all. And the reason that it didn't is because I I prayed all the time. I got up in the morning, I did my devotions, and my life was still so hard. And I really felt abandoned by God during that time. And that really stuck with me. I guess in a sense, it was traumatic. Not in that great big earthquake traumatic way, but I mean, just that I felt like during the hardest time of my life that God wasn't responding to me. And maybe God was in a way, and I was too in it to, to see that or be aware of that. But anyway, it stayed with me. And so I would say now, being that my kids are grown, I still feel that sometimes. I still feel like, well, what's the point? Now, that doesn't mean that I don't pray. I still do pray. I do the same thing that Suzanne and Joan were talking about. The same things, communication, when I'm walking, when I see something beautiful, or when something happens that I can give praise for, joy for. I haven't turned my back. I'm just saying that for me, there was a long period of time that kind of still hangs on, where I was frustrated with prayer. So that's my story.
Thank you, Robin, for sharing that and being so honest. When the pandemic hit a little over a year ago, I entered the same space. I just didn't have words and wasn't sure if it mattered. Here in Arizona for a while, people were dying and dying, just at a really fast clip. And my husband had to go to work. He couldn't stop because he's a healthcare worker. And I felt that too. And I think it teaches us a sense of compassion and humility, for others that go through these times, because a lot of us do. And God is still there, but we're not feeling the fullness of the Spirit. Okay, someone started a prayer journal. Oh, Nancy started a prayer journal again, and appreciate naming your loved ones and those in need. Yes, prayer journals are just real easy to keep. You can write your prayers if you want. You can draw, or you can just, when, at the end of your day, you can kind of list some of those places where you said, wow, or thanks God. It's a great way to remember the prayers that you are doing. One more, anybody else? What is prayer?
I'll jump in. Because when I have two kids who had medical problems early on, and parents who've already died, and walking through both those at the same time, it was really hard. And so what I came out of that, though, is I framed the day with the Lord's Prayer. And probably a good, when my daughter was young, she had open heart surgery pretty early, and we were just afraid that when is the next one? I could never get through the Lord's Prayer ever. I think my mind just was flooded with thoughts, and I guess I kept thinking it's okay. And I think it was through my son's medical problems weren't quite so severe, that for me, I began to see in my life, it kind of reminds me of the book that Norma was talking about, The Fruits of the Spirit, is on some of my worst days, when my mom's diagnosis for cancer just went down the tubes and my volunteer responsibilities were over the top, and I felt like I would have to be in the ICU to get out of them. It was ridiculous. And I was worried about my daughter, and I just remember that people came into my life. And one day there were 5 people who offered to help. And I just, by the end of the day, I laughed, because I was like, I actually kind of prayed that God, it took a lot of people to get me through this day, but thank you for those people who came into my life that helped me carry through this really hard day. Right. And I think that's kind of what I've kind of learned, is that, and maybe that's that prayer throughout the day, and paying attention and watching for the love and joy, kindness, gentleness, patience, willingness to listen, right? Willingness when you're just like at your wit's end and you're tired, you haven't slept for months, almost years, right? Never sleeping at night or during the day, and your ends that the people who come in and they show you and reflect the fruits of the Spirit, it's like, it's just like God's presence saying, I haven't forgotten you. I haven't abandoned you. And I think I looked for that because a pastor who meant the world to me, which is why I have my Christicon cup, he just influenced my life. He always said, is God is always there, trying to get you to see, but often we don't pay attention, right? Our lives are so busy, it's hard to see. So I think having those little words from a pastor from my childhood helped carry me through too. And so that's kind of where I feel like prayer, and I sit there and listen like to the nudges that I get, and I like laugh and I think, I wonder how many people God had to nudge to get 5 people to jump into my life that day, right? Because I think we all know we get nudges to do stuff that we fail to heed or listen to, or we think we can't do. And so that's kind of my take on prayer. And maybe that's the conversation with God too, right? Is that super active. And it's like how, and when we're really at our most needed, it's required for others to jump in. And then for us to then be willing to receive that, right? Because people can try to offer love. Like I have teenagers, right? We try to offer love and they may not receive it. And but we continue to offer love and guidance and support. And so that's, I don't know, that's kind of the prayer, the give and take is my thoughts.
And that reminds me too that we might be the answer to someone's prayer, so we can keep that in mind. We can be on that end of prayer. Thank you so much for all sharing it. Prayer is so different for so many different people, but then I heard 3 people who pray very similarly, as I'll call it the Franciscan prayer. So let's take, okay, I'm gonna have to share the screen again. I forget to do this. Let's take a few moments and have an experience of prayer. This will be like praying with an icon. And an icon is just an image, not just, but an icon is an image that is a window to God for you. It can be. So I'm going to lead you in this prayer, and we'll start by, inviting the Holy Spirit to be present to us in this picture that's on the screen. And just gaze upon the image. And notice what part of this image draws you in. It could be anything. It could be a color. It could be, part of the image. The image might take you somewhere else, to another place in your life that feels similarly or feels important. Just let yourself sit with this picture for a few moments. Let the picture draw you into that still place of stillness. And if you have your journal and your pen with you, you can write about what you notice, what draws you in. And silently consider, how is the sacred speaking to your life through this image? Perhaps there's an insight, a reflection, a memory. And then the final step is to simply let go of all of that and just be with God, allowing this image to be that window or conduit to just being. So let's talk for a moment about how that was for you. What made that a prayer? How was it to look at an image and invite God's presence?
I loved that image. It reminded me of the arch at the end of the Baja Peninsula in Cabo. My sister had a timeshare there, and we would spend hours sitting by the pool playing Scrabble. That was our thing. And so it made me think of how loved I felt by my sister and the physicality of being outside in the sunshine with the sand and the water, you know, hearing the waves. And that whole image just reminded me of God's love in that way. Yeah, it was a gift to go back in my memory to hold that in my heart. My sister died 13 years ago. So I'm always so grateful for moments like that where I'm able to remember her.
Thank you.
I could.
I had some mixed feelings about it. The beauty, of course, I love the ocean and the colors in the sky and the depth, the 3D feel of depth. But my eyes went to the figure in the yellow or cream color. I just saw it as a person there with an arm, and I realized that it wasn't, whether man or woman, we don't know, but it wasn't on the level of that little stream. I think it was like on a cliff, and it was very close to the edge. And so most of my thoughts went to that person who seemed on the brink of something, of falling, and then I started thinking about that could be me, because I love photography and I do crazy things like go out on a cliff to get a better picture. And so I thought about that, and my prayers went to that person, and not knowing, I wanted to know the story of what that person was doing. But my prayer was that it was a safe place to be, and that they are learning about themselves, whether they are on a brink or whether they are just looking at the beauty more closely. I guess as much as I love the beauty of the scenery, my thoughts went more to the person.
And it tapped into that well of compassion, sounds like, that you have for people. Thank you.
Well, that's awfully nice. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a.
Looked at it. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I looked at it completely different. Isn't it so funny? When I looked at it, it was like God's eye looking at the world, and then the water, the path that was wide and then narrowing, and just kind of wonderment. The whole thing was like a wonderment. And I felt like I was that person, but in complete peace and just looking at all God has before me. And even though it was big waters and rough rocks, I don't know, that whole, it just kind of had the shape of the eye. And I just felt like I was looking at in wonderment and in peace and just satisfaction, contentment. I don't know. So it's just, that's why it's so interesting that we all have different responses to things.
Thank you. Melissa?
Yeah, so I kind of saw it similarly. I went right to the place where I was the woman on the rocks, and with her, you know, she had real light clothes on, so she could feel the kind of rough rocks underneath her. And I noticed a little stream, which was really gentle. And then right in front of her through the eye was this big crashing waves. And she's staring out where she can see the stillness. And she wants to get to the stillness. That's me. But I have all these, I wasn't worried. I know I can get to the stillness, maybe not through that way, but she didn't look uncomfortable. She looked peaceful, and I felt peaceful knowing that there's all this other kind of stuff going on, and maybe I'm physically uncomfortable, but I could see myself laying in stillness in the still blue water out there.
Wow. Thank you all for sharing. So
and I saw the solidity of the rock, but my eye went right to the splashing water of there's action as well as stability.
Yeah, like St. Patrick's prayer, the stability, praising Christ in the stability of rocks. Thank you. All right. So going to talk a little bit about, wait, I got to get back into I'm sorry.
It's okay, you're doing great.
There we go. So we'll talk a little bit about finding a fit. Now, it sounds like some of you have a really comfortable, warm prayer practice, but you might have friends or you know somebody, or maybe some of you just feel like you haven't quite found a prayer practice that you want to stick with or kind of do on a regular basis. So in spiritual direction, as a spiritual director, when I take someone on, when they say they want to be in spiritual direction with me, I only have one requirement. Well, I want them to show up when they say they're going to show up. That's a given. But I have one requirement that I ask of them, and that is that they have a spiritual practice that they do regularly. It doesn't have to be anything I suggest. It can be anything at all. It could be taking a walk. It can be an activity that puts them in connection with God, but some way of intentionally connecting with God, some prayer practice. And so I'm going to share with you kind of how I help people when they say, well, I don't really know what I should be doing or what I need to be doing. So this is how we I go through this process with them. First of all, you need to just know yourself. Are you an extrovert or an introvert? Because possibly there are prayer practices that are maybe a little more comfortable for you based on your personality style. What is your level of comfort with silence? That's important to know. You can grow that if if it makes you uncomfortable to be really quiet and still. You can grow that comfort level by just doing it small bits at a time. What do I need in prayer? That's important to know. And then what sacred practices have been meaningful to you in the past? So those are some questions you can kind of sit with when you're journaling. It helps to know your physical makeup. Some people feel and sense things physically before they understand them intellectually. They're kinesthetic learners. There are prayer practices that are really good for those types of personalities or learning styles. Some people reflect best when they're in motion, so the walking prayers are good for them. And how in touch are you with your emotions? So if you know yourself to be to feel things deeply, you can kind of take that into prayer. And if you don't, you can, like learning stillness, you can kind of learn to listen, like, what am I feeling right now? And how do I bring that feeling to prayer? It helps to know what your relationship with God is like. Do you have an image of God that is healthy? If your image of God is that God is angry and judgmental and you got to do everything right, then you may not really want to be in relationship with that God, or you're in a fearful relationship with God. So if that's the case, you can kind of pray with that and work through that image, because that doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel like a healthy image of God. It's good to think about what's been my experience of God throughout my life. And some of you shared some really powerful experiences of being held, by other people, and knowing that must have been God's hand at work in them. Some people have experiences in prayer, maybe an insight, a word. They're not really hearing voices, which would, like the way a schizophrenic might hear voices, but you might inwardly hear a message. Quakers listen, they sit in silence and listen for that message, that leading from God. And then just knowing how can I speak about what I believe? Am I comfortable enough? That's not saying you have to go out and be a great big evangelist, but it just helps to know that you can speak confidently about what you believe and what you value. It helps to consider our relationship with others. Do I see God in other people? And many of you said you do. And can they see God in me? That's we want to cultivate that, being that reflection of the divine. How connected do I feel to others? If you're not very connected to other people, your social circle is very tight and small, then your prayer is going to be a little different, and you might want to change your life a little bit. Find some more friends and people that you can be supportive to as well. And is there a community in which I feel at home spiritually? And all of you are from the same church, so I suspect you have found that home. Some people pray about this a lot. Some people are not able to really find a faith community that they feel comfortable in. So that's something to know about yourself when you're considering your prayer style. And what is my relationship with nature? Many, many people experience God when they're outside of the four walls. So how often are you outdoors? And during the pandemic, I think this was part of my desolation was, just when it first started, we were afraid to even go outside. That was even before they said that masks would be helpful. So I think that had an effect on my prayer life. So now I try to get out as much as I can. How do I relate to creation? Do I see it as being, as Richard Rohr would say, Christ soaked? the creation is soaked in Christ. And how does this creation speak to me of ultimate reality? How does it speak to me of God? Some of you saw that in the picture, the eye, the metaphor of sitting in an uncomfortable place, but being at peace. So I want to talk a little bit about prayers that are active. If you're an extrovert, you might start here. It's not that introverts don't do active prayers, but I just want to kind of give some categories to think about. So there's the daily EXAMEN, where you take a look at your day and you ask yourself 2 questions. And you can form the questions any way you want, but they're basically around the subject of, where did I feel God's presence today? And where did I feel distant from God today? So there's lots of other words you can use. Where did I feel connected? Where did I feel disconnected? Where did I feel life? Where did I feel dullness? So there's all different ways you can find words that really work for you, but it's about taking that look at your day and then praying with that, asking God about those things, noticing them over time. If one particular thing continues to be a place where you feel distant from God, then you might consider making changes. Like the Serenity Prayer says, change what you can. Lectio Divina, I think Zanny told me that you all have done this before, sitting with a short passage, usually from scripture, but it could be a poem, it could be another piece of writing. Sitting with it and just waiting for a word, a phrase, or an image that connects with your life in some way. And it can be anything. So it's not like going into the passage to study the historical context and do all the exegesis work that that pastors are taught to do in seminary. It's something everyone can do. Like, where is this passage speaking to me today? What does that gift from the passage, how does it connect with me? And then kind of the point of it, you go through all of this, you pray with it kind of with words or with thoughts, and then you sink at the end into stillness, to just being with God. It's a good way to drop down into that quiet place. Then the labyrinth or prayer walks. Doesn't have to be a labyrinth that's fixed on the floor, but you can take a walk. But if you can find a labyrinth, it's all about setting an intention as you walk, intending to be with God, or maybe kind of the traditional labyrinth walk is you're shedding. As you go in, you pray to be shed of those things that you don't need in your life. You get to the center and you stop and pray, be with God. And on the way out, you can contemplate, okay, what am I now called to do or be in the world? Like, kind of the going out part is the action. The going in is the contemplation.
Teresa,
yes?
Excuse me for interrupting. Can you describe for us what a labyrinth is? I think some of us might not know.
Sure, I should have included a picture. A labyrinth is usually along a big circular path that you follow. It's got pathways that you follow. It's not a maze. It's one way in and one way out, and a place in the middle to stop and pray. Zanny, are there any in your area that you could speak of?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any in Stillwater, but I know that there's a labyrinth at the Benedictine Monastery in Maplewood, which is just on the edge of North St. Paul. And it's an actual fixed path, like Teresa said. So, and I believe you can Google labyrinth.
Yeah, there's a website that will tell you where every labyrinth in the world is.
Right.
They're usually in open space, and they're usually an invitation for anyone to go walk it at any time. So,
a number of the hospitals have labyrinths, or for their families.
And the White Bear Center of the Arts has one in the back.
Good to know.
It's big, actually.
Thanks.
Trinity member Lisa Gidlow designs them. She has many at her house, and then she designs them for many other places as well.
Yes, and sometimes you can find someone has made one out of a big piece of plastic or a big like a big quilt almost, and you put it down on the floor and people walk it. If you don't have a labyrinth, I mean, you can take your daily walk and kind of know what the halfway point is. And as you're walking toward the halfway point, you're praying to let go. You get to the halfway point, maybe stop, say a prayer, or sit and be. And then your walk back could be your moving into the world. Yeah, meditating.
And there's also a lot of like finger labyrinths and ceramic labyrinths. So
there are, and there's
lots to explore.
There are some, and there's different models of labyrinth. There's a 12 circuit one, and there's a 7 circuit one. My church created a square one, which feels kind of odd, but was what they had available land-wise. And there are also some, you have to search for them, but there are some that are accessible for people who are using wheelchairs, walkers. So they're not, some are on bare ground, like they've just cleared a path on the ground with rocks showing the direction of the path. But there are some that are wide enough and smooth enough for anyone. But the finger labyrinths you can buy, and people do that sitting in their prayer chair. And that's their way of praying and listening. People take discernment questions, something they're struggling with. They can take that into a labyrinth. I've used it a few times when I was grieving. And for me, it really felt like someone was walking with me. You know, it's just really very mystical. So I like the labyrinth. I like walking prayers. The daily examen I talked a little bit about, but I want to show you this short video from the Jesuit Institute of South Africa. And because he goes into a lot of different questions you can ask yourself. This is available on YouTube if you want to watch it again. You could even use it, you know, as a prayer practice. So I'm going to mute my microphone and play this. I think it's 6 minutes.
The examen is a simple but powerful technique of prayerful reflection. Experience alone does not teach us much. It is when we reflect on our experience that we really begin to learn. The examen is a practice developed by St. Ignatius of Loyola around 500 years ago. It can help us see God's hand at work in our daily lived experience. It is a simple prayer that has the capacity to transform our lives by helping us become more aware. It is best prayed daily. Step 1. Become aware of God's presence. Find a place where you can spend some uninterrupted time. Take a few quiet, slow breaths. Quiet your mind and calm your body, and gently relax into an awareness of God's presence. Imagine God welcoming you. Step 2. Review the day with gratitude. Take some time to think back over the day that has just passed. Ask God to show you the day through God's eyes. In the presence of God, review the day with gratitude. Gratitude is the foundation of our relationship with God. Notice any joys and delights. Focus on the day's gifts. Look at the work you did, the people you interacted with. What did you receive from these people? What did you give them? Pay attention to small things, the food you ate, the sights you saw, and other seemingly small pleasures. God is in the details. Step 3. Review the day again and notice your feelings. Notice moments when you felt fully alive, times when you felt at peace, joyful, happy, comforted, whole, connected, challenged, your best self. Those moments in which you felt close to God. Allow some of these moments to come to mind. These are times of consolation. Choose the moment for which you feel most grateful and stay with it. Savor it. Notice how God might be drawing you to more of those kind of experiences. Take some time to give thanks to God. Now remember anything for which you are less grateful. Experiences that caused you to feel drained of energy, frustrated, irritated, angry, sad, alone, isolated, unaccepted, fragmented, less than your best self. Bring these memories before God and ask God to bring you the healing you need. Step 4. Choose one feature of the day and pray from it. Choose one feature of the day and use it in your prayer. Ask the Holy Spirit to direct you to something during the day that God thinks is particularly important. It may involve a feeling, positive or negative. It may be a significant encounter with another person or a vivid moment of pleasure or peace. It may be something that seems rather insignificant. Look at it. Pray about it. Allow the prayer to arise spontaneously from your heart, whether intercession, praise, repentance, or gratitude. Step 5. Look forward to tomorrow with hope. Look forward to tomorrow. Ask God to give you light for tomorrow's challenges. Pay attention to the feelings that surface as you survey what's coming up. Are you doubtful, cheerful, apprehensive, full of delighted anticipation? Allow these feelings to turn into prayer. What gift do you think you might particularly need for tomorrow? Strength, energy, patience, courage? Ask for that gift. The more you practice the examen, the easier and clearer it will become, shedding light on the path God has laid out before you.
Okay. It's called the Ignatian Examen because St. Ignatius in the 16th century created it for the men who joined his order and said it was the most important prayer that they could do. They had a lot of different prayer times, but they were also working, all of them, and they complained. They said, we can't keep stopping and praying. He says, okay, you can let go of the other prayers, but don't let go of the daily examen. And that, if you just Google Ignatian Examen, that's the first video that comes up usually because it's just, everyone loves it. There are also prayer helps that you can find. Pray As You Go, which is an online phone app, and it's free. And it's created by Jesuits. Beautiful music. They choose some of the most beautiful sacred music and even contemporary Christian music that you've ever heard. It's very, very well done, very well produced. And, excuse me, they read the daily lectionary, which is usually the same for Catholics as it is for Lutherans and other denominations that use the lectionary. So they read the lectionary passage and have some journal prompts they share with you. It's really beautiful, beautiful app. And this is what I went to when I couldn't pray in the pandemic, when I was having trouble. I said, I just need help. And so I let the app, say the prayer. It's 10 minutes, I think, every day. And on Insight Timer, insighttimer.com, or you can get it on your phone. That's an app as well. And I mean, thousands of prayers and meditations and talks you can just choose from. And I even have like 5 of them on there. So you can just Google on, or you can search on my name and my page will come up, and I have some different prayer practices that I've voiced and put on Insight Timer. So I like the helps. Sometimes we just need someone to lead us in prayer, and those are good ones. Then prayers that are silent are popular with some people. Centering prayer. I don't know how many of you have tried that. It's about becoming very still. You have a sacred word that you give yourself, and you become very still. And when your mind or your body kind of strays from stillness, you return to that word as your kind of your anchor. And it helps our fast-moving minds. It helps them slow down a little bit. You're constantly coming back to your anchor because minds are kind of built to go all over the place. But the very act of coming back to your sacred word is a way of connecting with God and getting still so that you can hear that still small voice sometime. Maybe not during that prayer, but maybe during the day. You've tilled the soil by doing the centering prayer. Meditation, a lot of people do meditation these days, mindfulness practices, and that's simply focusing on one thing. A lot of people do it focusing on their breath. So just like centering prayer, you come back to a word. In meditation with your breath, if your mind wanders, you just come back to the sensation of air coming in and going out of your body, your breathing. Some people like to look at something like a candle or some visual sacred image for them. I like to do meditation focusing on the ambient sound in the room. I love to hear children outside playing, the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking. And I just, when my mind starts to wander, I just come back to those delicious sounds. And the goal is to sink into stillness and be with God, as opposed to, using words and asking. There's nothing wrong with asking, but there are times we need to, it's like a relationship, any relationship. There are times that you just sink into being with that person instead of jibber jabbering all the time. The breath prayer, we were going to do it, but I'll just describe it to you. And I do, I do this even when I lead prayer in worship for my church. I'll do this breath prayer instead of like the traditional prayers of the people. It's 2 parts. The one part, you just take a little time and think about your favorite name or image for God. So one example would be Lord, or it could be Holy One or Holy Spirit. The second part is what you desire from God now. So a short phrase. So have mercy or grant us peace, whatever it is that you really desire, that's the second part of the prayer. And then the third part is to put those 2 phrases together any way you want. And you inhale on one, exhale on the other. So you'll inhale, Lord, have mercy. And you just kind of do that repetitively, 3 times or more, pausing. But it's allowing your words to kind of float on your breath, your prayer. And what I like about it is you've created that prayer. It's yours. And so I tell people, write it on a little piece of paper and stick it in your wallet or in your pocket or your purse, and carry that little prayer with you. And you can say it, several times during the day. Then I want to just talk briefly about praying for others, because people sometimes ask you for prayers, and some people are kind of nervous, like, I don't know what to do. So some of the things you can do is make notes of the names of people who've asked for prayer and set aside some time to do that. You could walk a labyrinth for someone. You could use the Quaker practice of holding those who ask for prayer in the light, just an image of them being surrounded by God's light and love and healing power. You can do artwork, collage, drawing as a prayer for them. You can create a card to send them. Some people even devote one of their yoga practices. At the beginning of their yoga practice, they'll set an intention that this is for the healing of some person in their life. So those are some kind of different ways to pray for others when people ask you to pray for them. I'm going to move on, and you can ask all these questions. I want to leave time for questions from you and comments. But I like to talk about this because sometimes church people have trouble if someone asks them to pray. Like, what do I say? What do I do? If someone asks you to pray for them, ask them what they want prayer for. Let them kind of name it. And then you can create a short prayer that kind of paraphrases their desire. You don't have to go on really long, but just kind of say to God, express to God what they've asked. And always use their language for God, even if it's not your language. So maybe you don't use terms like Lord, maybe you have other ones, but if they do, then you use their language, because that's very welcoming for them and very helpful for them. Why don't I stop share here? Because I know we're going till the top of the hour, right, Zanny?
Yeah.
Okay. And but I do want to talk a little bit about spiritual direction. My book, Spiritual Direction 101, was kind of written for people who are spiritual directors or want to be spiritual directors, but a lot of people are finding it helpful for learning what spiritual direction is, and then deciding, do I want to contact a spiritual director and enter a relationship with one so that I can meet once a month. Spiritual direction is the practice of meeting with someone who's been trained to really listen and to reflect back what they notice and to pray with you. That's the spiritual director's job. And directee's job is to share what's on their heart or what's happened that month and how they've connected with God. The whole point is your relationship with God. And the spiritual director will help you explore that in lots of different ways. We don't give advice. We don't tell you what to do. It's not a discipleship course. We don't have a plan and a program for you. It's a conversation, a sacred space conversation. And you can do it one-on-one, which is what Zanny and I do a lot of with people, or you can do it in a group. And I know that Zanny does group spiritual direction at your church. So group spiritual direction is a great way to experience spiritual direction and also bond with the other people in the group. It's a confidential setting, deep sharing. These people can hold you kind of in prayer even as you're talking. So I just would encourage you to take advantage of that group spiritual direction that Zanny has to offer, because she's really good at it. She does it at Luther Seminary, and it's good to have someone like that in your church. And it's no cost.
Yeah. Yep. Trinity, yeah. I'll just interject quickly, Teresa. Trinity, part of what I'm paid for at church is to lead spiritual direction groups. And I've been doing it now for, I think, 3 years. Raise your hand. Some of you have been in spiritual direction with me. Yeah, in groups. So if you are interested in being in a group, let's talk. Just contact me. And if I have enough folks that want to be in a group, we can do a summer session. And we would choose times that would work for all of us. So ideally it's 3 to 5 people. It's a small group. It's really intimate. We meet every other week for 12 weeks for a total of 6 sessions. So, and again, no cost to you.
That's quite a deal,
Teresa. Yeah, it's pretty wonderful. And there aren't a lot of churches that do that. And Pastor Chris asked me to begin that after I completed my training, and it's really been, it's just a beautiful thing. Like Teresa said, you hold each other in prayer and get to know others on a really deep level, and it's completely confidential. It's a completely safe place to share what's going on in your life,
right?
And to be held and supported by others.
And the cool thing is you can share your doubts, you can share your emotions, your feelings. You can just really be yourself in spiritual direction. Mm-hmm. And that's the, we, I think Zanny probably does too. Sometimes we work with clergy, and they need that hour every month to just process all that's gone on and pray with someone. So they do it very regularly, usually. But anyone can go to spiritual direction. It's very helpful for kind of getting grounded in your life. Melissa, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to sing the praises of spiritual direction. That's all.
Yes.
It was very meaningful for me, and I did it twice, and I would do it again.
Good.
And Zanny's really good at leading that.
Thanks, Melissa.
Mm-hmm. Some people go to spiritual direction for a season in their life, maybe a discernment question that they're, a choice they need to make that they want to be faithful about. And others do it. It's a spiritual practice once a month, and if you're doing spiritual direction the way Zanny and I do, we definitely stay in spiritual direction. We definitely have a spiritual director we meet with, as well as a supervisor, to help us kind of learn more about ourselves and how to be more present to God and to the people who come to us in spiritual direction. I want to say a little bit about my newest book, because it involves congregations. So it takes the concepts of spiritual direction and it talks about how you can use them in large group congregational settings. So how you can help people with awareness of God, the congregations, reflecting on the life of the congregation, and even kind of pondering its future, and discernment. What's the question that we need to, talk about, explore, resolve? And then finally, how to take that action step, because discernment is all about getting you to a point where you act on the thing that you feel God is leading you to do. So I feel strongly that congregations need spiritual direction as well as individuals and small groups. That's all I had to present for you. So I'm hoping you have questions, comments, anything you want to talk about regarding prayer, spirituality, spiritual direction, any of the above. No questions? No comments?
I'm grateful to have learned so much today, and I've written down so many of your suggestions, and I noticed other people were doing that too, and just verifying the things that we do, but also looking at ways to create differences in what we do. And you mentioned yoga. I do the yoga devotion, and that the breath prayers are part of it, all through the session. And so that was kind of newness to me. And I'm grateful Zanny has brought a lot of these things to Trinity, like the Lectio Divina, and, reminders when we pray for others to know what they really want. So it was just I'm grateful for just the fullness of the experience today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was writing down those book titles that you shared. I read the first one. I've read The Only Women in the Room. It's very good. But the others I'm going to take a look at, especially those children's books on spirituality. That's, yeah. I think we need to approach spirituality like a child. Yeah. I think sometimes academics and clergy and, seminary trained people make it too fancy.
The woman who wrote, Jennifer Grant, maybe God is like that too, with your comment, Teresa, also wrote, maybe I can love my neighbor too. And so really brings current readings. So.
I have a comment. I'm just really grateful for this, that I decided to take the time to be still on a Saturday when usually I'd be running around doing a million different things. But I've always been really judgmental of my own prayer practices, because I think just how I was raised. And so this is just really validating all the different ways to pray, many of which I use. But for me personally, it was just another layer of validation I needed, that my prayer practices are okay and good enough for God.
Right. And I just want to emphasize, thank you for bringing that up, Melissa, emphasize that, don't beat yourself up if one particular prayer practice that everybody thinks is, the best just doesn't fit for you. Don't worry about it. Pray. The best way to pray is the way you pray best. So find what really connects you to God, and you can stick with it. You can try all kinds of different ones if you want. It doesn't matter. That the point is the connection with God. The point is just opening yourself to the fullness of the Holy Spirit. The Spirit's already in us. We don't have to beg the Spirit to come and, do something. The Spirit is there in us. Open up to the fullness of it, and, pray the way you pray best. I am not a believer in a hierarchy of prayer. But when I was in seminary, there were people who thought that silent centering prayer was the pinnacle. That was the best, that words were, not as good. But I just think, different personalities need different things. You can also pray with music. I forgot to mention that. Just sit and listen to a beautiful piece of music, or a happy song or something, or a funeral dirge if you want. I mean, whatever takes you to that place of being with God.
You know, I really appreciate everything that you've said today, Teresa. One of the things that I really am most taken with is I have some friends who are anti-religion, but yet as I look at their lives and their use of labyrinth and nature and different things, I see them respecting the source of life and praying in their own ways that I didn't see before. So I do appreciate that. It helps me see others in a different light.
Yes. Well, there are increasingly, there are Christians who would describe themselves as non-theists, meaning they don't any longer believe in a person, God as a person, but as a force. They believe in God and Jesus. But they see all of it as an energy force, kind of a more scientific way of looking at things. And so they sometimes, to those of us that, we love God as a person, they seem like they're not religious, but it's just a different way of speaking about and understanding the same thing. Many names for God, many images for God. So you probably will encounter some of those people at some time. And yes, they are quite spiritual.
And I just wanted to add, those of us who are at Trinity have been here for a while might remember Pastor Siri. Siri Erickson was a very progressive Christian, and she had a class that she offered many times called Building Your Own Personal Theology. And frankly, when I started at Trinity 12 years ago, that was so scary to me because I just wanted to be told what to do. I just wanted to stay in my little box. And Siri's the one that helped to open that door to, we don't have to stay in a box. God is bigger than a box. And whatever works for us and our relationship with God, amen. I love what you said, Teresa. The best way to pray is how we pray best. We are all designed so individually. And I also am very hesitant about any practice that's fear-based. You have to do it because ... And that's also why I love Trinity. And I love that we are a progressive, loving, open community of believers. You don't have to profess a certain way. God meets us where we are. So, and another big door opener was going to Hezekiah and getting my spiritual direction training. And it just sort of drove the point home. Our God is a God of love, not a God of fear. And, well, that's the world according to Zanny, but I'm sticking to it.
Because God meets us where we are, spiritual directors will meet you where you are. That's kind of the reason we do this, what we call non-directive or evocative method, where we're not gurus, we're listeners. So yeah. No fear-based prayer. Thank you.
So any other parting comments before I close us in prayer? Last call.
I was going to say a really quick comment too. Just thank you so much. I think just as a confirmation teacher trying to lead through these really weird times, I just found a lot of what you said really helpful. Because it's like, I think nurturing young faith with all the questions and the challenge. I mean, this year there's been so many, it's just so many challenges that I just appreciate. I was taking lots of notes and trying to how can I voice this in a way that these young girls can hear. And I think it does require some creativity and shifting in how we teach. And I don't know how to do that yet, but I think it's exciting that that we're growing and learning how to listen and to be with people where they're at, including our youngest. And these fabulous books, Norma, that you find, those are just great. And I might have to grab them for our confirmation girls. But so thank you all. This is great.
You're welcome. I put my email address in the chat box if you want to email me and ask a question or make a comment or whatever, I love to hear from people that that I've engaged with in classroom settings. So yeah.
All right, friends, let's pray. God of love, I give you so much thanks and praise for this sacred holy time that we've had together in learning about different prayer practices and spiritual practices through a teacher, through Teresa. God, I thank you for these beloved souls, and I'm so grateful that we've each gotten a little more information, some tools for our toolbox about how to strengthen and deepen our relationship with you. We love you, Lord Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. And remember, reach out to me if you want to be in a group. I'll start a group. All right.
Good.
Love you all. Thank you, Teresa. Thanks, Teresa.
It's wonderful.
Oh, you're so sweet. Have a good
Thanks.
weekend.
You too.
You too, everybody.